Hello, I'm Katie Taylor, Senior Analyst with Tag Cyber, and I'm here today with Rahul Kashyap, President and CEO of Awake. Rahul, thanks for joining me this afternoon to speak and share information about Awake with our viewers here.
Pleasure to be here, Katie, and thanks for inviting me.
Great, let's dive right in. So your platform, Awake, focuses on the network, but with so much focus today, we hear about applications and the application layer, devices, endpoints. That seems to be a trend. Why focus on the network?
Absolutely. I mean, network is probably the oldest form of security, where security industry literally started back in the days, and I was a part of that fun times back in the days. And it continues to be the same, but in a very different format now, because the world is very different. The network is very different now. So when we talk about network, I'm talking about what I call as a new network, which is basically essentially a hybrid environment where you have a little bit of data centers, a little bit of cloud, and it could be multiple different cloud providers. You have IoT, you have your enterprise networks, and then you have a ton of VPN users now, right? So it's a very elastic network fundamentally, and it's also very fragmented. It has many various aspects which are unique in itself, right? So we kind of cater to that specific use case, which is fairly broad in some sense, because the product was fundamentally designed to be a platform which could take multiple data sources and process and build data analytics on top of that. In this case, security analytics, right? So and how we do that is by first of all really identifying and knowing about every device that is in your network. So the moment you put us in your environment, we light up like a Christmas tree. We'll tell you exactly what are the various devices, which kind of users are being using those devices, what are the behaviors going on in those environments, and then we bring it all together in a single pane of glass. So that's very beneficial for a lot of our customers, particularly for the ones who are undergoing a digital transformation phase, which involves a lot of a very hybrid architecture. So yes, in some sense, I said I just kind of talk about it. The network is dead, long live the new network, right? So that's kind of how we talk about it. And from a forensics, investigations, analysis point of view, a network is very critical because you cannot hide. You have to traverse packets. You have to pass through a router. Any attacker has to, and once that happens, we know about it.
So in other words, the network is the ground truth. It sees everything. If you're an application, if you're a device, it sees everything. So that makes a lot of sense. It might not be as sexy these days, but the network is really, really important, and it doesn't just mean on premises, like you said.
Yes.
But that does beg the question, because companies, networks, again, hybrid, multi-cloud, whatever you're using as an enterprise, those attack surfaces are growing, the networks are growing, and every tool, every security tool, every IT tool is spitting out data. So isn't it hard to spot the anomalous behavior? How does Awake highlight signal from noise?
Absolutely. And that's kind of one of our key strengths where we really stand out against some of the other players in this space is we have built out a sophisticated stack of machine learning algorithms and data-driven approaches to really make sure that we can process a lot of signals, weak signals, strong signals, digest them, and then make sense of them before we send it out to our customers. So we do a lot of data processing behind the scenes to make sure that we are providing meaningful insights to our customers and not just noise. And that's a very big challenge, particularly in network security, because we process billions and billions of packets in an average enterprise on a daily basis. So how do you really distill that into actionable events? The team has worked for several years to build out the technology stack ground up, and how we typically run the show is we ask our customers and prospects to POC the product and see it for yourself. Put us in front of any other technology behind or next to it, and then we just deliver value based on how we build our algorithms fundamentally.
Excellent, thank you. So one of the core ideas behind Awake is that there's more to organizations' networks than they think, and the attacks themselves have evolved as networks have changed. So in particular, how do cloud and the growing number of unmanaged devices touching and communicating on the network affect what kind of signals your customers see?
So, it's a very important aspect of identifying signal and noise. It's very important to make sure that first of all you should be able to identify various devices, right? To give an example, we have a fascinating example where a large corporation got us to do their east-west traffic analysis, and they put us in their system. This is a very large corporation, a very well-known brand in the industry. They have a large cybersecurity team, and they were interested in really knowing, was there any lateral movement going on, right? And so they put us in. The first thing we do in a scenario like that is we try to passively listen and try to really identify what kind of devices you have. Like, in this case, we found out they had around 7,000 polycoms. So we clustered our algorithms. We clustered, say, hey, these devices are of type polycom. Then we'll identify all the mobile devices. We'll say, okay, you have 10,000 mobile devices. You have 20,000 IoT devices. You have so many laptops, right? So just passively looking at network traffic, we fingerprint, identify, and build an asset inventory of your entire organization. And then we implement algorithms on top of that to say, okay, between IoT devices of type IoT devices, should an IoT device be sending out an email, for example? Should an IoT device be connecting over TeamViewer? So there are several examples which just stand out just by this pre-calculated analysis. And in this case, we found was one of the polycoms was uploading data over an encrypted TLS channel, and it turned out to be that somebody was actually recording and stealing secrets from that organization, right? So so the anomalous behavior need not have a classic malware like an executable. There could be malicious intent, which we are able to identify amongst all the noise. So yeah, it's a pretty, it took us several years to get here, but we are pretty excited at what we have built in terms of the core technology and the key capabilities in the platform today.
So you just mentioned the polycoms and leaking data. So that it's a security issue, but it's also a privacy issue. And privacy is obviously a big, big topic. So even outside of GDPR, CCPA, and the other regulations, privacy is a risk factor, and it's also potentially a competitive differentiator for enterprises and their customers. So you have a couple of different elements. AVA is one of the components of your platform. Can you talk a little bit about what AVA is and how it's actually a little bit more than a privacy feature?
Yeah, so we introduced the concept of AVA last year. The idea was how do we leverage the cloud? How do we make sure, and then fortunately we built this after GDPR and all the compliance standards were already out. So we made sure that upfront we were building something which was privacy aware and at the same time compliant, no matter anywhere in the world. So you should be able to use this concept anywhere in any enterprise worldwide. So that's the advantage we had of building it. A lot of vendors had the challenge, when GDPR and some of these compliance standards hit them, they had to rechange and rebuild a lot of things in the back end, right? So we didn't have that problem because it was designed with privacy in mind. And what we do is that we have a federated machine learning concept behind the scenes in AVA. How that operates is, first of all, we make sure that nothing private ever goes out. But as we are collecting data to ascertain if this is good or bad, we make sure that it's federated and there's nobody else who can actually have access to that. First of all, secondly, we try to make sense of it from a vertical perspective. Like if there's an attack going on in the financial sector, we want to learn about those TTPs and what's really going on and leverage that with our other financial services clients. So it's almost like a self-learning threat intelligence platform in the back end. And that's the first use case of Ava, which is in the on the back-end processing. On the front-end processing, what we do is that Ava also helps to triage real events. So literally, when you're sitting next to the console, you will see Ava autonomously triaging events, saying that this is good, this is bad, and will prioritize stuff for you. It's actually pretty fascinating for some of our customers because they literally can see the automation in live action in front of their own eyes.
So it's a little bit of threat intel, a little bit of automation, but you don't really use indicators of compromise when you talk about awake. You talk about intent detection. What is it? What's the difference?
Yes, our customers can use or upload IOCs if they want to. That's an add-on feature, But intent is kind of how we look at it. It's a much more sophisticated problem. As you see, more and more more and more enterprises are finding that the attacks are getting far more sophisticated. When you have an insider trying to exfiltrate data, he or she may not be using any traditional malware. You could just be uploading it in small streams in some external data source, right? How do you identify such stealth activity which is hidden and blended? So that's why we call it intent detection, because we're trying to identify malicious intent that's far more complex and sophisticated than just looking for a piece of malware, right? And that's kind of where the industry is headed fundamentally in terms of cybersecurity. This is because the attackers are far more sophisticated. Once they're in your environment, they will do everything to blend in and stay hidden. And identifying malicious intent is a very complex problem. So what we have done is we have built a host of multi-correlation capabilities behind the scenes, wherein we can take the weak signals, process them over a timeline, and then make a decision and correlate them with others to see that, okay, the combination of X, Y, and Z sounds like something bad is going on behind the scenes, right? So fundamentally, what we're trying to do here is almost think like an analyst. If I were an analyst, what would I do? And that's where the whole Ava piece joins in and helps as an additional add-on to make these decisions. And the combination of that is ultimately you just reduce the noise automatically, and then you only see what you care about the most.
So you mentioned insider risk when you were just talking. That's obviously one great use case. What are some of the other more common use cases for your customers? What are you seeing in the marketplace in terms of adoption and interest?
Yeah, I think insider use case is a very important one, particularly now, given that everybody is remote and the traditional controls don't work as that well anymore in the current COVID scenario. That's a very important use case. The several others are compliance and hygiene. So many people say that in the first 10 minutes of my pitch, when I'm just talking about device identification, fingerprinting, and identifying every asset, that itself is good enough for many people, because people just don't have the visibility, right? They don't even know what kind of devices they have in the organization. What is the list of what are the hygiene problems they have with those devices? How are the IoT devices going rogue, right? So I think that visibility piece is very important for a lot of our CISOs and customers who are particularly right now struggling in making sure that they have a compliant environment overall. So they use this to enforce their policies and making sure that they are compliant, and at the same time nobody's making shadow IT practices, and if something is happening, they are aware about it. So that's the other piece. The next piece, what we have really spent a lot of time on, is really working with SOC analysts. We have spent thousands of hours with like real SOC analysts sitting inside the SOC to understand their workflows. How do they operate? How do they interact with products like ours? So that in case there is an incident, they have access to everything they need in a single place. Because we do full packet capture. We have all the forensic artifacts available. We have all the we can load TTPs. You can load threat intel. So we have a lot of frameworks which are available for you to really go deep down in investigation. right? So that's the other piece which has been very valuable for our customers is the deep workflows we have built into the product to really simplify and automate a lot of their mundane tasks. The next thing is, I would say, the integrations. So we are a detection and response piece. So we work very well with our partners such as endpoint EDR platforms, network firewalls, and so on, so that in case something malicious happens, we have an enforcement point and a strategy. So that kind of completes, gives packages the whole solution into a framework which is very easily actionable for the customers, basically.
So this all sounds really good, but one question that we get when we're talking to enterprises, especially when it comes to network security tools, is, oh boy, network security, that's going to be a pain to deploy. We're going to have to do some network changes. It's going to take months. So how does Awake work? How is it deployed? And what could people expect if they decide to deploy Awake?
Yeah, so we have made it really simple for our customers, and it's been a big focus. And we work off a tap or a span port essentially. So we just passively take a copy of packets in your network, and we build our intelligence out of that. So first and foremost of all, we won't cause any damage to your network. We're completely passive behind the scenes. So people really like that because we are deployed in very highly sensitive networks and environments. So the fact that we can actually do that passively is a big attraction for a lot of CISOs because usability, friction are a big challenge and hindrance to cybersecurity, and we kind of address that very cleanly with this approach. From a deployment point of view, we have several ways to deploy the product. It could be complete end-to-end cloud, where we deploy a software and then it connects with our cloud nucleus, or it could be completely on-prem as well. So we have multiple options. Ranging from a hybrid all cloud to all on-prem solution, and it depends on the customer use case and customer base, how they what's their preference and how they are set up basically. But the core technology has been built to be deployed in the cloud as well as on-prem, and it typically takes within a couple of hours. We have done several large deployments, so it should be very easy and seamless.
So really moving towards the cloud, but for those companies who still have something on-prem, they can use it too, but you can facilitate their digital transformation to the cloud.
Yes.
Great. Well, Rahul, thank you so much for being here today. Some great information about Awake, about the company, about the platform. And for those listening, please contact our friends at Awake if you're looking for a network tool that can do network intent detection and response. And thanks for watching. Rahul, thanks again.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.